You're with Jeannie on the brown note. Working from home, the battle begins. Working from home, if you're an office bod, has been the greatest thing to have come out of both COVID and modern technology. Every single argument against working from home can be shot down in flames, virtually every single one, with a much better argument against. Take all those poor businesses in CBDs and them losing money, and what about their lives and everything else? Well, I say, what about the businesses that are now getting business in my own community where I live, where I actually have something invested in, not some soulless CBD I don't have any connection to outside of work, the local cafes and shops and everything else, where I live, raising all ships where I actually am, benefit. Every argument. Social contact is the biggest one. People saying that, the social contact in an office is the be all and end all. I have much truer conversations with a headset on, having a personal one-on-one conversation with someone that I don't have to modify because other people in the office are hearing it. And what is my social range in the office? Some person sitting next to me or opposite me? It's an egalitarian way of communicating. And some people say that, you don't get the social cues. I'm a very audio person, so I listen to what people are saying, and I can do that a lot better than fragmentary social interaction in an office. And you could argue that's probably close to the top of the arguments for going back. Social contact. But again, there are arguments against that, or that say social contact can be enhanced by the privacy of the social contact you're having online. Mental health is, people say, people locked up in home, their mental health is suffering, they need to come back to the office. I would counter that by saying that an awful lot of us, our mental health is suffering from anxiety by going back to the office. We notice now this, continual background noise and how difficult it is to concentrate. Being in an office, the fact that you've got to travel, you're thinking about it the night before, you're sleeping worse, you are eating worse, you don't have the incredibly comfortable environment you have at home. And this doesn't apply for everyone. Some people are in situations where working from home is a bad thing. Because of the amount of family they've got in the background, it's harder to do. But in general, it isn't. In general, people can spend an awful lot more time with their family because they're not wasting it travelling to and from work. I just had to check. I wasn't broadcasting live. Climate change. The impact on climate change is enormous because there's so much fewer people using public transport or driving to work. This is an important thing. It's an easy win. We're talking about ways of modifying our behaviour in order to combat climate change, and having less people travelling backwards and forwards is a huge element of that. Being able to do your job. A lot of us are finding that we can do our jobs a lot better in this hermetically sealed environment at home than we can in an office where there's an awful lot of background noise going on. And having this, this mental space and calmness to do it in is helping us do our jobs better. If we've worked from home for 10 months in a row, we know that we can do our jobs as well or better at home. That ship sailed. Being able to afford a house, being able to afford somewhere to live. I've spent $500,000 in rent in Sydney, giving it to other people's mortgages to their children, because I'm tied to an environment where it benefited people that already owned houses 20 years ago, and where I will never be able to afford anything unless I work remotely, and then I can live where I want and get my own place. And the idea that people who can't work from home aren't benefiting from this proposition is rubbish. If you're in any couple where one half is tied to the CBD because they're the big earners, and the other person might be a teacher or a nurse or something like that, and I'm not saying that from the male only dominant perspective. You might you might be the male and your wife is the breadwinner, and she can now work remotely, and you work, in a warehouse, in a shop. You can now move and work somewhere else. It benefits both sides. It doesn't benefit everyone, but it does benefit both sides for a lot of couples as well, even when one half can't work remotely. But big business, the people that own CBDs, own billions of dollars of property in the CBDs, we're never going to let this go. We knew that there was going to be a war. They're pretending now that, working from home or working remotely is a gift from COVID, and now that everything is settling down, despite the fact that Australia is now at 50,000 cases a day, being spread wildly by forcing everyone back in the office, they're pretending that it's just a gift from COVID, and that when things quieten down, we'll all go back to the office and it'll all be like it was before. Bullshit. I'm sorry, but absolute crap. That Rubicon was crossed when we found out we could do it. We found out it worked. This isn't a gift from COVID that goes away after COVID. The entire paradigm of working in an office has changed. There are no good reasons to go back in. Some people want to go back in. Now is the time to fight, because they're going to try and force us back in. And I don't want to go back in. And in the future, I won't be back in. And there are plenty of businesses out there now that are offering that as an alternate paradigm. But the other people we've got to fight in this is the ones that we didn't realise, which is it's not just the people that own these billion-dollar office blocks in CBDs that are coming for us with political backing. It's the extroverts. The extroverts are unfortunately our enemies in this paradigm as well. They want to be in the office. They want to be there. They enjoy this. I don't. I'm an introvert. I hate being in the office. They actually love it, and they're also, unfortunately, on the other side of the equation here. So this is something that is coming to a head right now. The big business side of the equation is just pretending that the last few years never happened, and we only work remotely because it was COVID, and that's why. Not the fact that we've discovered that there's this whole alternate universe, which is not only possible, it exists, and we've lived it, and it works, and it's brilliant, and it's the best thing to happen to office work in history. It's the best use of human technology in the modern era. It's brilliant for climate change. It's brilliant to stop the spread of these viruses and plagues that are besetting our world. So this is where the fight starts, and the only way we can fight is by continually changing jobs until we get remote work, and that isn't a paradigm that will be accessible for everyone, but the more of us that fight for it, the more it will become normality. We've already seen very few employers nowadays will force you in more than 3 days. So we can keep pushing and pushing, and this is essential, and I am going to do the same myself.